Just your overall thoughts on Kansas City coming into town this weekend.
Obviously they're a good team, had a good result last night, won very convincingly and, pretty easily at the end of the day. They didn't have a game on the weekend, so, they could be a little more tired, but now they're not as tired, but it'll be a good game. It's in conference. The West is a tough conference.
Were you surprised by their chemistry, given that they had so many guys out with injury?
I think New England made a lot of changes, and I think New England disrupted their chemistry a little bit. Even though when you watch that game early on, New England probably should have been up by 2 or 3 very early. But, I thought, sometimes when you're not going with your frontline guys, the other guys recognize the opportunity. It was a good mix. They just dig in, they work. And, I thought the balance of their workers and guys, Dwyer scores a great goal. Benny Feilhaber, does really well. They get a very fortunate PK, so everything turns out well. But it was a good combination of guys working really hard and guys who could still provide the skill and the organization of their team.
Is there anything that you guys can do then to kind of disrupt them, given that they'll have players in it?
Obviously, we got to be concerned about Benny. The game really runs through him this year more so than ever. Dwyer is a forward who constantly, is coming at you. I thought Namath, not just because he had the 2 goals last night, but he's a good player. He's an experienced player who does well coming off the flanks. Those guys are definitely important players to their team.
You spoke Tuesday about the considerations that went in for picking the S2 team last night. With Victor Mansaray specifically, might have been a little bit of a surprise that he was down there. What was sort of the thinking behind keeping him with S2 for the Open Cup?
Just, obviously there were a few guys that we needed to play for their team as well. We can't play everybody with us, and by the time we enter the competition, sometimes there's 1 game, sometimes depending on the draw, maybe you have 2 games that are against non-MLS opposition. And so we felt that, for him to be able to get a couple of games or 3 games in with S2 would be better as a young player for his development. So that was the reason that we let him continue to play there.
Dylan mentioned the progression between Columbus and Vancouver and now Kansas City, those attacking teams, and how you guys have gotten a little better. That's sort of the same deal here. Is it just sort of pick up where you left off against Vancouver?
Yeah, I think the thing we did against Vancouver is we obviously did a good job in the second half for sure, possessing the ball and managing the game and doing things like that. But also I thought defensively we did a good job. We worked really hard and we were conscientious and really alert to our responsibilities. And we have to continue to do that against KC.
There seemed to be such an urgency in the stadium last night. Is that kind of where this team gives you something that you'd never have gotten in Reserve League?
Yeah, for sure. The game's a competition. The meaningfulness of the games is something that's great. So for a player like Damian Lowe, who really has gone, because of his injuries last year, has gone a year plus without really playing games, for him to constantly being put into meaningful games is going to just accelerate his development, and it's important for a guy like Victor as well. Those games are at a higher level than playing Academy League. They're not our level, yes, but they're at a higher level. But the thing that's good about it is just the meaningfulness of the game and the intensity that's attached to the game is important for their development.
Did you consider throwing Charlie Lyon into goal to experience that?
That was a little more of a tricky one because, we're at a situation too. We didn't want to get into a situation where if one of our 2 goalkeepers got hurt, that now all of a sudden we got to bring elite goalkeeper in as the 3rd keeper when we're going into Open Cup games and stuff like that. So we want to keep Charlie available to us. Maybe as we move forward or they move forward, maybe we'll change that decision as we go into the next round.
Is a little bit of a hole in the present system. It just seems like Perkins isn't getting any minutes at all.
Yeah, and we've talked about that. Obviously Open Cup's coming up around the corner, and we've also talked about him maybe dropping down and picking up a game here or there with S2, and that's just something, with the timing of their games right now, it hasn't really worked because it seems like they're always playing the day before us or something like that, or they're on the road when we're at home, or we're on the road and they're at home. So just trying to wait for the right time. We've looked at a certain date that works for us. And, so if he hasn't got any minutes with us, he might be dropping into an S2 game here soon.
Next week there'll be 6 hours before you.
Yeah, so I don't know if we do that.
Is there anything that you guys can do to take advantage of this short week for Kansas City?
For their short week?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it all depends. I mean, last time they went on the road against D.C., they played a pretty conservative game. They dropped in and they really didn't attack or press as much as they do at home. So if he follows the same modus operandi, you know, they might drop in a little bit and try and take the air out of the game and slow it down a little bit. So we just have to see. Obviously, they've had some injuries, so how many of their guys are going to be able to make it back? So are they going to have fresh legs? Are they not going to have fresh legs? You know, can we take advantage of that? That's something I think we'll see as the game, you know, gets going.
I know I ask you every day, but any update on Oba status for the weekend?
No, it's the same as I said yesterday. Same thing.
So still possible?
For this weekend, probably no.